Hey everyone, my name is Drew Brucker. I'm the head of brand and content at Goldcast. So excited to be here today. And I'm going to jump into a topic that I think is really exciting and should be a little bit insightful here, all about Mindshare, the event marketer's guide to Mindshare, how to win it before, during, and after your next event. So here's the thing. Most marketers, they think their job is to drive signups and attendance, which is true, but it's wrong. Your real job is to make sure people remember the event and your brand long after your event. And that's what we like to call at Goldcast Mindshare. Mindshare is essentially the new pipeline, right? If your event doesn't build Mindshare, doesn't build recall, it's just another forgettable event. So let's take a step back. Let's think about your buyers, your customers, your prospects, and in this case, your attendees, how they make buying decisions in the first place. 67% of buyers already have a brand in mind before they start the buying process. 81 have a preferred vendor by their first contact, and then a whopping 94% buy from the first brand that they thought of. So in other words, if that's not you, you never had a shot to begin with. So the key insight here, most event marketers are playing the wrong game. They're chasing signups and they're chasing those short-term things over the long-term thing, what we like to call brand recall and mindshare marketing. So let's get into sort of the three stages of events, right? The trilogy of events, if you will, before, during, and after. Before, it's all about building that anticipation and social proof. During, we're talking about creating that interaction and a unique experience for your attendees. And after, it's really about repurposing and extending the life and the value out of that event for as long as possible. Okay, so let's dive right into how you're going to win mindshare before your event even takes place. Most marketers are just relying on ads, social, email to do that. And that's okay, but everybody else is doing it. So how do you do things differently? Here are a couple ideas for you. What about the personal invite hack, where speakers send personal one-on-one invites to the VIPs, the people that you care about most to attend because they're going to convert better. In fact, they're going to convert 3.5x better when you do that. Another way to really kind of think about things differently is to leverage FOMO, right? We all want things that we can't quite grasp or that we know we want to attend, but maybe we just can't, or there's some exclusivity involved. And that's what this is all about. So maybe you share who's attending beyond just the speakers. Maybe you have some other influencers or big names in your industry, in your space that are going to be attending the event. Take advantage of that. And then lastly, how about a predictive content drop? You know, an example of this is sort of releasing a pre-event trend report and tying that to the session or sessions that you're going to talk about to begin with. These are just three examples of how you can provide more of an innovative thought process to your next event. So how do you win mindshare during your event? Well, you can get a 45% boost in retention with live interactive elements, right? Engaging elements. One of the things that I like to do is really this interactive slide rule. And it's the idea that every so often, every 2, 3, 4 slides includes some form of audience participation, right? And this makes sure that you have that wave of engagement consistently through your event. Another thing that I like to do is real-time decision polls. So maybe you extend your slide count and maybe you have a few different paths that you could go down or pivot toward based on what attendees think is the most important. So that's just like a choose your own adventure type style event, something they probably haven't seen before. And then lastly, another thing they probably haven't seen before is like a surprise drop-in. Maybe you've got an industry expert that is just unannounced that comes right into your event and sort of pattern interrupts it all, right? These are ways to keep people focused, engaged, interacting, and providing, again, a unique experience. One stat that I really love here before I move to the next slide too, 22x more information is retained when they're interactive presentations compared to static ones. That's a huge difference. And that's huge because your brain actually forgets 90% of what you hear. So if you're just doing an event with the talking heads and slides, you've already lost. Let's move to how you win mindshare following your event. And I think this is where a lot of people start to fall off because you've achieved and you've felt the satisfaction of your event, right? You got people to show up. You got your names, your emails, your contact list, right? Maybe you're going to do some follow-up. Okay, but it really doesn't end there. You can 4x your engagement when you repurpose it into multiple formats. So one of the things that I think is extremely underleveraged at the moment is this repurposing flywheel, right? Creating multimodal assets that you can drip long after the event's over. One of the best ways to do this right now is to use some sort of AI-powered tool. We have one at Goldcast called Content Lab, free by the way, allows you to drop in any long-form content, any event, and then instantly extract clips, key takeaways, blogs, Q&A, et cetera, et cetera. And so you really think about how that can save your team a lot of time and energy in 2025, because we all, as marketers, right, are doing way too much as it is. The other thing that I love to do is think about what comes out of the event from a qualitative perspective, right? If you're doing an event right with interactive elements and engaging elements, you've probably got a lot of audience questions or comments or insights or even takeaways that you can compile to create a new asset. And then lastly, I like to follow what I call like a 30-day follow-up sequence. These are just some ideas for you, but perhaps 1 week after the event, right? You're doing something around the key takeaways from the event. 2 weeks after, you're doing a highlight reel from the event. 4 weeks after, you're dropping new insights based on things that you've discovered post-event, right? These are the thoughts and the ideas that need to really be creatively thought about before the event begins, so that you don't just rely on the excitement and achievement of what you've done after the event's over. Okay, so Drew, that's cool. How do I measure Mindshare success, right? Here are some ways to track it. And the way that I'm thinking about this too is you'll know your event is successful if people remember it, right? So here are some ways that I think you can really think about doing that. Something like retention rate, probably not a new one there, right? How long did people stay on the event? That tells the story. What about the number of interactions and engagements per person? What's the median number of interactions that they had to begin with? Questions, comments, etc. Let's look at post-content engagement. The content that you have post-event. Are people watching those clips days, weeks, months after? Another thing that I think is totally underleveraged is a post-event survey. Do you have recalls? Can you ask attendees what stuck the most with them from the event? I mean, you can really get some great insights as to how your current experience is versus what your ideal experience is for your events. And then the last two I think are really interesting, which is time to next touch point. How quickly are attendees engaging with your brand after that event? And then what is the repeat attendee rate? So how many of those attendees ended up showing up for your next event and the next event, or took an event off and came back, right? Like a high repeat rate is really a good indicator of strong mindshare. So a couple things I want you to stop doing and start doing. Stop marketing for leads, instead start marketing for memory. Stop thinking about simply getting signups and filling seats. Start thinking about filling headspace before, during, and after the event. Okay, so some final takeaways as we wrap this up, right? The best events have FOMO built in. If people don't feel like they've missed out, they won't make sure they show up next time. Great events live 100 times longer than the day they happened, because an event without a long tail is really just a meeting. Instead, I challenge you to make it a movement. And then lastly, your best event promo is the event itself. A truly great event doesn't need heavy promotion, because people will do the marketing for you if you've built up a good repository of goodwill from previous events. They know what to expect. They know there's high value. They know it's engaging. They know it's fun. They know they're going to learn something insightful, right? So let's all challenge ourselves to aim for that for the next event that we do. And I want to thank you for the time. I really enjoyed being with you guys today.